chose to use the actual pictures here, but this actual article coming out of Chicago Sun-Times or chicago.suntimes.com actually is talking about the latest film that came out, Black Messiah and Judas, dealing with the life of Black Panther chapter chairman in Illinois, Fred Hampton. And the article is actually entitled Bobby Rush to Meet His Actor, or the actor who portrays him in the film. Now, I will say I did watch the film. I will be doing a review for those in my Patreon film review group. If you're interested in signing up for that, just go to Patreon, sign up for the film review and a group, and you can also enjoy some of the perks of the private office hours that we have on YouTube after my show. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to go into a full review of the film here. I will briefly read from the article, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I saw in the film. Bobby Rush says Black Panther Illinois chapter chairman Fred Hampton's words ring true decades after the charismatic leader's killing. Former Black Panther member and U.S. Rep Bobby Rush, Democrat of Illinois, and Daryl Britt Gibson, the actor who portrays him in the film Judas and the Black Messiah, would love to meet one day. Rush, the co-founder of the Black Panther Party Illinois chapter, said he's seen the film, which details the events leading up to a December 1969 pre-dawn raid that led to the killing of chapter chairman Fred Hampton, 21. And that's one thing I'm going to show you in a minute. You're not going to believe that Hampton was 21. But anyway, the killing of chapter chairman Fred Hampton, 21, and Mark Clark by the Chicago Police Department in conjunction with the Cook County State's Attorney's Office and the FBI. The film was emotionally engaging, said Rush. It's a good film that needs to be seen. It will bring Fred's story into sharp focus, his personality, his life in general, and certainly his assassination into sharp focus. We must always keep in mind that Fred Hampton's assassination was the only state-sanctioned assassination of a political leader on American soil. Abraham Lincoln's assassination wasn't state-sanctioned. John F. Kennedy's assassination wasn't state-sanctioned. And like most of the films based on true events, this one is missing key events, Rush says. Welcome to the Brotherhood, King Harris. Anyway, let me see. He says, it's missing key events. However, he says Judas shows the extent of the fear of the FBI, led by Director J. Edgar Hoover, had of the Panthers, mainly Hampton, at the time. The film was accurate up till a point. It's not the full story of the Black Panthers, nor the Illinois Black Panther Party, said Rush. Fred was considered a national threat. Hoover was afraid of Fred's potential to be a national spokesman. They had to be aware of the fact that we were working tirelessly to get Fred out of the country. I would encourage people to go see the movie. It's a Hollywood version of the truth, but people will be more knowledgeable about the heroic and valiant contributions of these young men and women who dedicated themselves to try and uplift the Black community, right? So very powerful film. I did appreciate how much they showed in terms of J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI's influence and the extent they went to really, control. We're talking about COINTELPRO. And you don't generally see a lot of Hollywood-made films that really deal with COINTELPRO's impact, particularly during this era in the 1960s and 70s. All right. I wanted to play a very, there's a couple minutes. It's a clip of Hampton himself talking. I should have edited it a little bit, so I think the beginning of it, it's a little garbly, but this is basically Fred Hampton talking about the importance of education, and he's dealing with it in the context of starting a new program. So let's check it out.
You basically knowing my ideology, and basically you knowing me knowing yours, you can support some of our programs. Is that what you're saying?
Why not?
And you believe in programs like the Breakfast for Children program and free health clinics? Right on, brothers?
We believe they're good things.
Uh-huh.
As a focal point to organize their mothers and fathers.
Uh-huh.
Peace.
Mm-hmm. There's no educational program here?
That's come out of social action thing. You set that up, bro. I mean, we can't put everything on one piece of paper.
What about this bank?
Credit union?
Mm-hmm.
Credit union. Credit union, my brother.
Is a bank.
Are you hip to credit unions? It is a bank.
Yeah, you go and borrow money.
Yeah, it's a bank. It's a bank. Owned by the people, run for the people, and by the people.
What will money be given out to people for?
Well, the people would decide that. You want to buy, you know, whatever, you know, the people in the community decide.
You need some living room furniture, maybe? You need a car, maybe?
See, the thing is with me, you dig, I need to know some more about it. I wish you had some more literature about the educational thing here. Because, you dig, as far as we're concerned in the struggle, the way we look at struggle is that this depends on the educational thing, you dig. Because
this depends on the education.
Well, the whole thing.
No, but in the end, this does. You can form this with no education. You can form this and this.
No, not the way we're talking about forming it. You know, right. We're talking about forming it right. You know, it's not on the paper. We didn't write it on the paper.
You can form it right with no education.
No.
Let me give you an example. Jomo Kenyatta formed the excellent revolution with no education. And on the end thing, Jomo told the motherfucker, I said, well, you know, you can educate, hate the enemy, but I'm your brother. I'll help you lead the revolution. Now I'm going to oppress you. Another example, Papa Doc in Haiti. Papa Doc in Haiti hated everything white. Man, you couldn't put this white paper in front of Papa Doc's face. But he moved all the white people out and he took over and be oppressor. He did, because of no education. And the people that had been educated, they just said that we don't hate the motherfucking white people, we hate the oppressor, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow. So we got to know the educational program to find out what is going to be in the finale. A lot of people, Jomo Kenyatta is called never a revolutionary, but an ex-revolutionary. So is Papa Doc. They brought on a successful revolution. That thing in the Mao's was a bitch. Bantu freedom fighters, all that kind of action. But what we're saying is that it's the end. That you don't judge Castro now. You can't do it. Nobody in this room could judge whether Castro's going to be a revolutionary or not. You know what I mean? We're talking about things, you know what I mean, with China, the People's Republic, and even at the stage they're in now, talking about even going on further into a communistic state. That's what we're talking about. Those are revolutionary. So we got to understand here the educational program that you have to be able to figure out whether it will go on the right lines where the people will end up in a situation where they can be able to really control themselves. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, the people take this local foundation and start stealing money because they won't be really educated to why it's a people's thing anyway. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, you have neo-colonialism instead of colonialism, like you got in Africa now, like you got in Haiti. So what we're talking about is there has to be an educational program. That's very important. As a matter of fact, it's so important for us that a person has to go through 6 weeks of our political education before he can consider himself a member of the party, able to even run down ideology for the party. Why? Because if they don't have an education, then they're nowhere. You dig what I'm saying? They're nowhere because they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. You might get people caught up in the emotionalist movement. You understand me? You might get them caught up in because they're poor and they want something. And then if they're not educated, they want more. And before you know it, they'll be capitalists. And before you know it, we'll have Negro imperialists.
Real talk. Real talk. So basically, you got a 21-year-old brother like that. And Hoover was terrified of what he might do. And he was terrified of a number of people across the board. He was terrified of Elijah Muhammad. He was terrified of Malcolm, of course, of Martin, of course, Kwame Ture. There were a number of figures. There's no question. There was an all-out assault on all forms of Black radical leadership in the 1960s and 70s, most particularly. But Hampton was incredibly powerful. And so I will say this. You know, the film in itself treated Hampton with dignity. And I think a lot of that had to do with the consulting they had from people who were actually there, right? You walked away with a respect for Hampton and what he was capable of, what could have happened had he lived longer, or even gotten out the country. We know Eldridge Cleaver and a number of others left the country for a while. Of course, Assata Shakur, some never came back. Many died, you know, many were in prison for decades. But, had he been able to survive, even if it meant leaving, coming back at another point, you never know, but the film itself, I think, left you with a respect for what he was able to accomplish, and his political acumen, his analysis, his critique, and even the way he, kind of broke situations down. He had an old soul. There's no way in the world that I would have just, matter of fact, when I was younger, appreciate that, Dardar. When I was younger and I used to hear these clips of Hampton, never would have crossed my mind he was 21. And if you'd have hit me with that at 21, I just would have denied it. It's just, but the brother was incredibly powerful. And to that extent, the film was done well. They spent a lot of time dealing with the Judas character, which was basically the FBI informant who was placed in the organization at the behest of the FBI, informing them on what's happening, kind of, uh, contributing to the breakdown of the Panther Party in Illinois at the time. And this was happening all over the country. Now, I will say I ran across a post in Facebook that came from a brother who was a member of the party and knew Hampton. I can't verify that, but based on what I read, I'm tempted to believe that he was telling the truth. And basically, what he said was, at that time, there were things left out of the film. Some of the situations going on with Hampton and some of the local gangs went a little differently. He said the Panther Party was armed when they dealt with various gangs or whatnot. He pointed out a number of things. One of the things he also pointed out was that after they did a documentary and they interviewed the FBI informant, and they said on record that apparently a couple of days after the interview, he committed suicide. The gentleman in question, the gentleman I'm mentioning who put up a Facebook post, I put it on my page. You can go there and read it if you're on Facebook. He actually said he dressed up as a funeral director, or at least a member of the staff at the funeral parlor, and he went in to witness the body, and he said it wasn't the FBI informant. So the argument there is that he probably went into witness protection, which wouldn't surprise me, really, if that had taken place. But really, the legacy of COINTELPRO and the impact on Black activists has still not really been told, let alone to the degree it really needs to. So I think the film at least raises that question. But I would say the most impactful part, alongside the spirit of the film, right? The way they showed Black men and women operating was insightful. It was inspirational. It was beautiful in that respect. But the other important part is the death of Fred Hampton and how that went down, how that took place. I had read about it, but whenever you see a film for the first time like this, like the very first time you saw Malcolm X, or the very first time you saw Birth of a Nation, the story of Nat Turner, these are things you may have read about if you've been in the movement, but you just never expected to see on screen. And there is some emotional cachet to that. There is some power to that I didn't expect. And that scene when he passed, I won't give too many details as far as that, because I really want people to support the film. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it does, I think, the legacy of Hampton justice. But to see how he died and what went into that murder is definitely something that needs to be witnessed. So check it out, Judas and the Black Messiah. Again, not arguing that it's the best thing ever done, but I am saying that the legacy of Hampton needs to be on our minds, needs to be discussed, and I think the film does just that.